All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome. And thank you so much for joining us this week for another installment of Ask Epic. We meet every week to discuss all things epic because there is a lot. And this one's going to be a great one, everybody. I want to let you all know. We have some amazing guests with a lot of great information to share. So I can't wait. We meet every week to provide new to Epic families and returning families to a place to learn about just all the great information we have and resources and all the opportunities we offer. I am Carla Smitherman, and I'm with the Epic Development Team.
Hi, and I am Shawnee Woodruff. I'm also with the development team as well. We're happy to be here today with all of you. And for those of you that might have questions or comments, we do have a chat box that we will address every now and then and go back and check that. And then you also have a way that you can reach out by dialing the main number, which is the 405-749-4550, and our extension to our department is 489. You can also send us an email at edt@epiccharterschools.org. So, with that being said, we do, as Carla said, we have two amazing guests today. So, we have the director of benchmarking, which is Robert Lowry. And then we also have a special education teacher with the schoolhouse model, which is Kimberly Payne. So, welcome to you both for being here. Robert, would you like to share just a little bit about what your role is in the in your role in Epic?
Sure. So my role at Epic is I lead a team that we help support teachers when they are giving benchmark assessments. We also build our formative assessments that you do through Epic Ed or through Schoology, and then we also build and support the U.S. citizenship test that is now required for our juniors and below. And then we also do proficiency-based promotion and credit by exam.
Okay, that is great. Kimberly, would you like to share just a little bit about what it is that you do with us with Epic?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Kimberly Payne, and I am a special ed education teacher with Epic Schoolhouse Model. I have also been an Epic 101 special education teacher, and definitely have met some challenges. And this school year in the schoolhouse model, I am on my first year with the schoolhouse model, and I am so thrilled to enjoy everything that the schoolhouse model offers: the in-person education, the friendships between the classmates, the fellowship that parents have with each other, networking, talking, going on field trips together. We even have homeroom parents who get to throw the Valentine party this next week. And so Valentines are in the air, and they are so excited to be able to give Valentines to their friends and their classmates and teachers. I also wanted to tell you guys that if you do have any questions about the schoolhouse model, we do offer the schoolhouse model to grades pre-K through ninth grade, and my understanding possibly 10th grade this next school year. We would love to have you and come visit, see what we're about. We have locations across the entire state. Look us up, ask Carla, ask Shady, where can I get my eyes on a schoolhouse model, and just come drop by and see us. We would love to have you. But I think it's a perfect blend between old school brick and mortar and Epic. It's just a combined, beautiful experience for students to have and be able to experience.
Oh,
That's
we love
good.
that, Kimberly. We push schoolhouse model every day when we talk to families, and it is exactly as you said, a great way to combine both of these wonderful types of school models together. And so I am so thankful that we have that program to offer and that you gave lots of great information about that.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Hey,
am
and I
too.
have one
Thank
other thing.
you.
I'm sorry, Miss
No,
Mitterman, can
please
I
go ahead.
say parents
Sure.
don't need to be afraid if their student has an exception or a special need. We have services for just whatever your child needs. Schoolhouse can take care of them.
No,
Absolutely.
I'm so glad you gave that wonderful, wonderful commercial for
Yes.
Schoolhouse because, like Shani said, our development team does a wonderful support for. We love, love, love Schoolhouse, and we like to offer it to our families because it does build opportunities to talk about connections and the communication and all the great things that Schoolhouse is offering to our families. So, thank you for that. I appreciate that. So, now we're going to pivot to talk about one amazing tip that every week I like to talk about a tip and ask our guests because this is a different model. When you are asking families to come to Epic from brick and mortar, it's different. Epic is different. And so we like to say that we offer something unique. We have a different approach to way we teach our families and way we bring an educational model to families. So we like to have our guests give one tip for success. So what would you like to offer our families, Robert? We'll start with you, and then we'll go to Kim.
Well, I think my tip is look for those resources that are available through your teacher, but also through other parts of Epic, and the development team is able to help connect you with some of those resources as well. Some of those resources may be practice tests to help prepare for the state test. Could be resources to help study for the U.S. citizenship or to help do a lot of different things. And as an assessment guy, that's what I know a lot. And so just looking for those resources that are going to help you be able to progress along. I think that's really important for success at Epic.
Okay, thank you. And I agree with you. We do have a lot of great resources and our team does like to help families guide them to those where those resources are. Absolutely excellent. All right, Kim, how about you?
Hey, so as a Epic teacher, I know that I have a library of resources. So don't be afraid to ask your Epic teacher, hey, I understand there's a library of resources. Can you share that with me? So if you don't have resources, please, please ask for that from your child's teacher. And then also, I want to put a plug for Chad Cargill for the 11th graders. He is a rock star. He is somebody who your 11th grader, even my sophomore, is getting Chad Cargill workbook and the workshop. And he will even tell you, hey, I've done the data and I know that C is the answer that ACT is using this school year. I mean, he's just the bomb. He's great. Chad Cargill. Mm.
That sounds good. I know I agree with you that Chad Cargill has absolutely had great success and we've had great outcomes with utilizing that as a resource. So I agree with you on that one. Well, I had one tip that I just thought about it. One tip I like to offer is, and it's kind of one that I have to be a little bit transparent as a parent. I had a daughter. Still do have a daughter. She is older now and graduated, but when she was younger, every time I would say the word test, she would be like when you say Mufasa, she'd kind of shiver. And I ignored her as a parent. Now, I hate to admit that because, we like to think of ourselves as the perfect parent. But I admit to you all, when it came down to testing, Lauren actually had anxiety. And I ignored her until she was older and she spoke up for herself and said, Mom, I have anxiety. Stop ignoring me. So I want to say this to parents: do not ignore your young person if they are saying to you they have anxiety. They probably do. And so I think that's one of my tips to you as parents. Students may go K through sixth grade and not have any problems. They may be off the charts with their test scores and then get to middle school and all of a sudden they're having some anxiety. Do not ignore them like Mrs. Smitherman did. So that's just a tip, and just really listen to your student or young person. That's just my tip. And she's doing outstanding now. And of course, I learned a little lesson. So that's my tip. Anyway, okay. So now that we are pivoting to speaking of testing, that's what we're going to be talking about. And like I said, we're excited to talk to Robert and Kim today. We're going to be asking some great questions. So spring marks a crucial period for Epic Charter Schools as it aligns with state testing requirements. And you know what? I'm so glad we're talking about it now instead of waiting until later on in the season. The mandate for our school to participate in these assignments underscores their significance. As students statewide eagerly engage in spring testing, we strive to empower our families with necessary tools, resources, and information essential for navigating these testing season. And there's a lot of preparation. Do y'all agree with that? Everybody agree with that? There's a lot going on. Our organization is preparing, teachers are preparing. I know Robert's doing a lot of preparing, which he'll talk about here in a minute. So we're just getting ready, and we're getting everyone's going to be ready so that we can have great outcomes. Throughout the year, our students have actively participated in benchmark assessments, each teacher tailoring test preparation methods like Kim, she's going to probably talk about some of that here in a minute, to their unique approach. The overarching objective is continuous improvement, progressing day by day and month by month, ultimately leading to the pinnacle of achievement during state testing. Today's webinar is crafted to enlighten families about our test taking procedures and policies and processes, and offer some tips like we talked about on how we can best support our students. So anyway, so now Shawnee is going to start asking some questions to Robert about how we can best offer some support for our families.
Yeah, so Robert, we're just going to ask you a few questions that could be really helpful to our families if they're watching right now or if they watch this later, because we do provide that as a recording so that families can go back and watch it later. We'll have more information later on when it gets closer to testing, but some things that we're talking about today might be really helpful to people early on that might be kind of already gearing up and thinking about that coming up. So we're excited to hear about the things that you all are going to offer us today with the questions that we have. So the first question I would ask you, Robert, would be, why do we have a state test?
Well, as Carla already kind of mentioned, it is mandated. It is mandated by the state, but also even by the U.S. Department of Education. So even if Superintendent Walters decided we're going to get rid of state testing, we'd also have to go through the U.S. Department of Education as well to get that type of approval. But one thing that it really does is, since it's at the end of the year, it kind of helps us culminate all the work that students have done for the entire year and help us get a snapshot of, okay, what have they learned? And then also it allows us to be able to look at where do we still have some deficiencies, both for the student to see, okay, we have other holes to fill in to help them continue to succeed, but also even deficiencies we as a school have, and maybe some ways that we as a school can try to provide better resources, better instruction for our students in the future.
Okay, that is great information to know. Leading into that, so we know why state tests are important. So how do you think benchmarks help our students prepare for this state testing?
So with our benchmarks, in high school, while benchmarks are not required this year, I know the VLCs have been going ahead and using our ACT practice tests as their benchmarks. So they're preparing and practicing how to take the ACT. What is the ACT like? Trying to build up that endurance, since it's a almost 4-hour test whenever you go through the whole process of the ACT. So they're practicing that. With our pre-K through 8th graders, especially 3rd through 8th, since that's our state testing area, they see they take the STAR benchmark, and with that, it's great because teachers are able to, again, it's a snapshot for teachers to be able to see where a student may still have some deficiencies. And whenever we benchmark several times a year, we can see also the growth to where then we can still be encouraging to a student. Hey, so yeah, you know, you're still struggling with fractions, but hey, in the fall you were also struggling with surface area, but now you're doing great at surface area. So you're still able to have that conversation with that student and with that parent. Hey, we're still struggling with this, but we're also seeing success with this. And you're able to kind of do that. But then it also helps that teacher plan that instruction as they go forward into the school year. And it kind of updates them as they go along.
Okay, great. I know one thing just to add to that as a teacher, as a former teacher with Epic, is those benchmarks to me, whether it be the third grade or the high schoolers, it kind of just really helped them to understand that there is a specific time period that you're going to have to stay focused for a specific amount of time. Whereas I know a lot of times when we give tests and things like that throughout the year, they have a little more leniency, things like that. So I think the benchmarks really kind of help with getting that setting in there a little bit with those students. So
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Yes, it definitely does. It helps that, and it also helps just practice how do we test as well.
Yes.
You mentioned kind of focusing in on that time. Uh, I encourage our teachers to use our practice tests for third through eighth grade. We have practice tests available. Use those, and also use the benchmark to rehearse what it's like for the state test. I know some teachers in the past have done it where, you know, they have 3 or 4 students that are going to show up at the library or one of our microsites, and they show up and they check them in like they'd be checked in at a state test site, and then they bring them in, they all sit down, and then they get their password, and it's just like they're taking the state test and they're rehearsing it. But it's, especially with our practice tests, they are not our practice tests are not something that is uh, high stakes. It is not something that is going to be, okay, if you don't pass this, we're in trouble or
Right.
anything. And
Yeah.
everything. It is really, it's just a practice. And so then some of the pressure can be taken off, and then the student can know, okay, this is what it's like, especially for our third graders or even first time testers. We have some kids that come in from homeschool, and they're an eighth grader right now. They just came in from homeschool. They've never state tested before. And so they're new to it too. Our third graders are new to it, but so are our students that have come in from that homeschool or even a private school environment.
Yeah, that's great to think of that way. I really hadn't thought about that. You know, the students we have that were homeschooled that are coming in, they don't know what to expect. So it's great that these teachers are able to do that ahead of time so that these students are not kind of caught in the moment whenever it's time to actually go in for the state testing. Going to those benchmarks that we were just talking about, what kind of benchmarks do we give to our students?
So pre-K through eighth grade, we give them the STAR reading. Well, actually, so pre-K through first grade take STAR early literacy, and then second through eighth take STAR reading. But then STAR math is for first through eighth grade. And so those are the required benchmarks that we have for our students, and they are ones that we give. And so with Renaissance, who's the parent company who owns the STAR test, it's an adaptive test, so it's really able to hone in on where is a student actually functioning at. Okay, if a student is behind and they're functioning, if they are a third grader and they're functioning at a first grade level, we need to know that, because then if they're functioning on a first grade level, we can sit there and try to use resources and other supports to try to sit there and bring them on up to their actual grade level, rather than just giving them a test and going on down the line and not really worrying about it.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Um, Yeah, I know there's a lot of different tests that are taken throughout the year, but I think some people get confused about what are actually benchmarks and what are actually, curriculum tests and things like that. So that's good to help get the difference there. So what do you think would be some good feedback right now in the ways that your department is preparing for the state testing right now?
So right now we're preparing for state testing in that me and my whole team are going to be at a test site this year. This is the first time that we've had to be at a test site. We've normally been helping the state testing team answering phones, doing other things. They have that a little bit more under control this year, where they're able to let us go out and actually go to test sites and be on site at a test site the entire testing season. So we're gearing up for that. But we're always looking at our formative assessments, looking at ways that we can review those. The formative assessments are just 5-question assessments on a particular standard. So teacher is able to assign those formative assessments based on what a student has already or should have already learned through their curriculum, and once they take that, we can see, okay, how are they doing? We as educators, especially our teachers, but educators in general, can work with that student and reteach to then give another formative on the same standard to see, okay, are we seeing growth? Where's our understanding? Because we want our students to be successful. And so we are working on that right now as well. Coming up right around March 1st, we will be helping prepare state test materials. My team will be helping the state test team, but also we will be adding in students into Pearson ACT to make sure that our ACT tests are ready, because that's the first part of state testing is 11th graders and their ACT tests, as well as the 11th grade history and 11th grade science.
Great. I love that you all are actually going to a test site and seeing what it's like to be there in the moment. I think it's great when departments that are kind of usually behind the scenes that work behind the scenes get to be in the front lines and see how things are working. I think it creates a lot of great things for the future. So we're kind of hogging up all the time here. So let's get Kimberly in here. Carla, you have some questions for her?
I do, and I don't think it at all. I loved all the questions you were asking, Robert. So, Kim, I know has a lot of great information to share too, though. But thank you so much, Robert, so far. That's great information. So Kim, I'm going to start talking to you about test anxiety because I know you're an excellent teacher, and I know that you have seen a lot of young people come to the table, knees shaking. I already
Mhm.
gave my testimonial
Absolutely.
about my own personal situation. So give us some example or your thoughts on what a family should be doing right now to prepare their
Mhm.
student if they know that they do have some fears about testing. What should they be doing
Right.
right now?
I think the number one thing that if I were to give advice on, I would say remain positive. Remain positive. We can get through this. Just encourage your student to absolutely do your best. You know, you've got this, all the encouraging, positive things that you could say to them, and maybe rewards. Let's get this test taken today, and we might stop off for some pizza or something after we get finished. What you know your child, and whatever makes them feel good and successful, that is one of the things that I would encourage parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whoever's taking them to this test site. Have that positive attitude. Today's a great day. Here's a piece of candy. I know you've got it, kind of thing. I also wanted to remind parents to, with their family, a lot of times we have parents who are working and we have to have a babysitter take them to the test site. These test sites, you will know where they're located before the test day. I want to encourage families to drive by and see where it's located. Encourage your child to, look, that's where you're going to take your test. And will go through that door. I'm just certain of it. And your teacher will be right in there. And also have a plan for how are we going to get there? Is your child going to need to ride public transportation? Are they going to need to Uber? Are they going to need a neighbor friend? So just make it where it's not so nerve-wracking, and that they know what to expect on the day of testing. Yes.
That's outstanding. So preparation is everything when it comes to test taking, right? No surprises,
No
right, Ms.
surprises.
Kim? I love that. I love that. I think that you're right. That will alleviate all anxiety.
Mhm.
The more you know, the better off, right?
Mhm.
Even, sometimes with my families, I would even recommend putting things on the refrigerator and smiley faces and putting things on the calendar and allowing them to put it on the calendars and just doing everything to help the family, help that child feel vested in the process. So that's what we do. I even would encourage the family to tell them, okay, what kind of breakfast do you want that morning? Everything, anything you can do to help them feel extremely a part of that process that morning. So thank you, Kim. I think that's outstanding. Whatever we can do to help them overcome any anxiety is what we're going to try to put in place. Okay, how about for a first time, third grader? We know that these young people are third graders. They've never taken, and I think Robert did a great job of talking about some of the things we can do. Do you have any other thoughts of some other preparation we can do to help our third graders?
I sure do, Carla. And for those kiddos who are taking that first time test, like you said, breakfast and having their belly full, whether it's a donut or a biscuit, whatever they need, to keep their mind off their grumbling belly, and that they're focusing on their task at hand. I would say, just have a conversation and say, you got this, do your best, and your best is all we can expect. And, offer them tips, stay focused. Remember, you don't need to talk while you're testing. If you need a pencil, ask for it. Encourage them to participate in the state testing. And if there is something that they need or a bathroom break, it's okay to ask for a bathroom break. But just tell them, it's not the end of the world. Just do your best. And that's all we can expect from you. And I would say for any parent who has those test taking children, get on the Oklahoma State Department of Education website. There are released test items that you can actually show your children, coach your children through, and there are answers. There's even answers. So you'll know what the actual answer is for that test question. There's so many resources. And I would say also, if your child's teacher, I know this time of year, teachers are forming study groups. If your student is offered a study group, you receive an email from that teacher, please sign up for it and take it seriously, because we only want to get your child over the finish line. And if there's something that we could practice with them, because I know lots of teachers use calculator practice. Remember, our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders can use an online calculator. Encourage them to use a calculator to maybe check some of their math work, their schoolwork. And then also, there is also available a scientific calculator for the ACT math portion. And know that scientific calculator. Encourage your child to jot down on their paper, let's use that piece of paper and make sure that their math is, they work those problems out. And take your time, do your best.
Kimberly, as you were
That's
just
good.
discussing that, Robert had some really great piece of advice there. As we're talking about things like this, we really need to know, as a family and as a student ahead of time, what are your accommodations for testing.
Yes.
We do have students who have accommodations beforehand on their state testing. If you don't know what those are, you need to reach out to your teacher and find out, because we do have that happen where students show up and they say, oh, well, I'm allowed to have this, but it's not on their accommodations. So you need to really check that out with your teacher ahead of time. That was a great catch there, Robert.
That is. And
Yes.
as a sped teacher, Kim can speak to that very well.
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
And
Kim, you
so
want to
each
address
parent,
that?
yes, Carla. Each parent would have a copy of their child's IEP. And from that IEP, you have an accommodations page specifically for state testing. It lists out every single accommodation, whether you're small group, if you have the calculator, you're allowed that, frequent breaks, any of that is in the IEP. We abide by what is suggested in the IEP and make sure that your student has those accommodations. So review your IEP and make sure that, when going into that testing situation, that your child knows, hey, if you need a break, get a break, ask for it, and whatever's on their IEP. Yes.
That was an excellent point, because
Yes.
he's right. You do need to make sure that you are informed, and it is up to the teacher and the parent and the student to have really good communication so that everybody's on the same page. Because fortunately, you walk in that testing site and sometimes that teacher may not be the person who is the proctor. So it's really, really important that that student is informed and that parent is informed. So thank you, Robert and Shawnee and Kim, for making sure we clarify that. And Kim, thank you for expanding. So anything else you want to talk about that, Kim? Is that about take care of that?
Yeah, just to make sure you're aware of accommodations.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. Very good.
Is there a time limit to that? Because if somebody comes in a week before state testing and says to their teacher, hey, I really want them to have small groups, can they do that? Or do they need to do this ahead of time?
Excellent question.
Well, their IEP needs to be written before they take that state test. Accommodations are automatically downloaded into our system, and so we're aware of the accommodations. As long as the IEP is approved before they walk in that test door, we can have accommodations, whatever we need. Those can be reviewed the week before, the day before, and a parent can call for an IEP meeting anytime they want. Mm-hmm.
With the exception of the ACT. Now, there's one caveat. The ACT, now that has to be approved. That is outside of EPIC's. EPIC has to have approval from the ACT, and that is back in December. Now, that is one caveat that has to
That is
have.
true.
So that's the only one. But other than the ACT, everything else is, if you're taking all the other testing. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
So anyway, but those are great questions. And so that's why the testing is such a comprehensive and huge processes, and there's a lot going on with it. And that's why I'm so glad we are having this discussion right now, so we can make sure that we are as informed as possible. So now I think we've already brought up a little bit about juniors, and you did a really good job, Kim, of already talking about juniors. How can we, as a district and as teachers, administrators, how can we make sure that our juniors are aware of the importance and the value of the state test? Because it's a state requirement, right?
Right.
And not just that ACT, but they've got 2 other tests that they
Right.
have to take to graduate. So what do you do as a teacher? What can we do to encourage that, to make sure that they get to those state tests?
Well, my juniors have cell phones, and so I would encourage others to remind them, hey, your test, your ACT, your state testing is on a certain day at a certain time. I need you to be there 15 minutes before, ready to go. Make sure you take your calculator. But I would also let them know that at Epic or any school in Oklahoma, you have to take that ACT to graduate. It is a requirement for your diploma. And so it's just another box we need to check off. But it is very, very serious, and not just the ACT, but all sections that are required. We have our Oklahoma Science that is required for 11th grade. And then we have that Oklahoma History, U.S. History, that the state of Oklahoma requires for those 11th graders. So it is a process, I will say, but it is a requirement for graduation. So anytime you tell a junior or a senior who might have missed it the year before, hey, you're not going to graduate if you don't take this, get this taken care of. So
I guess it goes back to all those rewards we talked about, right? And all those that listen, the juniors don't really care about stickers anymore, right? But we just have to, I love what you're saying, just continuously reminding them, hey, this is a requirement. You have to have it, has to be done. Another thought is just to remind them that they are 3 different dates and times that they have to go and separately sit for these exams. And so what I think, Kim, you actually used to tell me, remind them early, because we all know juniors have jobs, they have lives, and they like to know early. It is difficult to tell a 17, 18-year-old at the last minute anything, right? So
Right.
I think if I recall, when I first came to Epic, most of my families were just perplexed that in January I was telling them to be prepared in April to take, you're going to have 3 state tests. So anyway, but do you have anything to add to that, Robert? Any thing that you would have to add to make sure we're getting those juniors to take those state tests?
Um, I think you've covered most of it. I mean, letting them know ahead of time, definitely to where they can schedule off. It is required. I will say when our state assessment team and even our building test coordinators are trying to schedule these tests, whenever they're doing that science and history, because really they're almost like a half-day test, they almost try to, if they can, they try to actually get them on the same day. And that's able to happen sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes that's able to happen. And if that's able to happen for a student, then they're only having to miss 2 days of work or 2 days of this over here, and they only have to take up that two days there. So that is useful as well. Also with the ACT, it's if you're doing just normal time, no accommodations or anything, it's about a 4-hour test. So make sure that you also plan for that 4 hours. If you're supposed to be there at 9, expect to be there till 1:30 just to make sure that you give yourself time. Don't schedule yourself to be at work at noon when you're still going to be taking the test. Schedule yourself for 2 or 3 in the afternoon or even later.
That's a really good point about scheduling time and making sure you're giving yourself enough time to make sure you're completing those tests. And then those who are picking them up, your families, making sure, I think Kim had mentioned getting that neighbor scheduled and scheduling that auntie or uncle, making sure that they've given themselves enough time to pick up that child or that young person. So anyway, well, Kim, do you have anything else to add to this so far? And then I'm going to turn it back over to Shawnee, and she's going to finish up her questions for Robert.
Just to know that our 3rd through 8th graders do take state tests. The 3rd through 4th take reading and math. And then the 5th graders take reading, math, science, and a writing test. And then we have 6th grade. They take the reading and math. 7th grade, reading and math. 8th grade, they take reading and math also. And then we have the science and writing for them. And then we have our 11th graders with their ACT, their Oklahoma Science test, and then they have the U.S. History test. I think that was the quiz, right?
Okay. Yeah,
You
sounds
passed
like a
with-
lot.
You passed with flying colors. Thank you.
It sounds like a lot. I mean, I can't imagine people who have several different grade levels in one family. I know it's a lot. But once they get through it, it's finished for the year. It's only that one time. So hopefully we can get through that. Robert, so I was just wondering, so what if we have a family that lives in Oklahoma City? Do we automatically just schedule them for anywhere that is open so they just go to Tulsa? Or do we actually have like some kind of way that we try and get these families closer to where they live?
So when teachers and parents went through the ILP this year, they asked the question, do you want to state test at the same site as your teacher or at the closest to your home? Because as we know, sometimes you're going to have a teacher that may live in Edmond, but you live in Mustang. That's the case for my nephew. My nephew lives in Mustang close to me, and his teacher lives up in the Edmond area. So my brother sat there and put closest to home. So he'll be scheduled maybe Mustang, Yukon, or even up here at 50 Penn. But then, his teacher is scheduled at Oklahoma City Village. So they may not necessarily be at the same site. But then there's a chance that they could be. I don't know. It depends on kind of how that works out. But they really try to look at your physical address and trying to give you the closest or a close site whenever they're looking at that. So you should not be here in Oklahoma City and have to drive all the way to Tulsa to test, or drive from Oklahoma City to Durant or Idabel, Broken Bow area down there or something. You will test here in the city. They also look at how many students are at each site. So your closest site may be 50 Penn, but it may be easier for everyone involved if you go to Oklahoma City Exchange, or for you to go out to Yukon or Mustang. Still not that far out there or whatever, but they're never going to sit there and have you go from Oklahoma City to Tulsa. Now, once you get out into our rural areas, it does get a little bit more difficult. We have a site in Enid, we have a site in Woodward, we have a site in Guyman. Guyman to Woodward, that's almost a 2-hour drive right there, just in and of itself. So you live somewhere in between there, you need to assign to one of those. You may have an hour drive. That's just the nature of being out in the rural areas. But if you're here in one of the metro areas, you will be at a site at least within the metro area.
Okay. Yeah, that's great to know. Yeah, we don't just throw out the dates and the locations without putting a little bit of effort into it. And I like how you brought that up during the ILP, and when they do that with their teacher, they do actually talk about that in the ILP about where your location, where you would like to have that at. So that's good. We did talk about already lots of different practices and different things that we could do to prepare. I did remember that Kimberly brought up the idea of calculators. So who can actually use calculators, and then also possibly formula sheets?
So 6th, 7th, and 8th grade have formula sheets and calculators. So 6th and 7th grade have just your basic calculator, and it can have the plus or minus or your positive, negative key on it. That used to be where they could not have that on there. But last school year, they did actually add that back in, as the plus or minus can be on there on the basic calculator. Then it's a scientific calculator for 8th graders. And then they also have formula sheets. And I do recommend that they use those now. You know how to use your calculator. In our formative assessments and on our practice tests, we have the correct calculator linked to the test, to where then you can practice using it within the computer system as well, because it will be available in the computer system whenever they're taking the state test. So it's going to be available there, so they can practice with the formative or with the practice tests that we have available to practice how to use it there. And then obviously practicing with the physical, because we do have physical calculators on site normally as well. And so practice how to use all of it, to where then you know how to do it. And then that's not going to be a stumbling block for you during your test. I remember whenever I took the ACT the very first time as a sophomore in high school, I forgot my graphing calculator. So I got a lower score. Then I had learned a little bit more about math, and I remembered my calculator, and I got the score I needed to get into OU because that's where I wanted to go. And so because of that, I was like, okay, me having the calculator, knowing a little bit more, it did great. And of course, at that time, the ACT was not required to graduate like it is now. But our 11th graders for the ACT are able to use a graphing calculator, and those will be provided on site. And I believe they're like a TI 83 or TI 84. So I would recommend for students to get to know how to use those, just to make sure that you know how to use that whenever you're on the state test.
Yes, that is good information because that calculator is not the same as a regular old-fashioned calculator. If you punch in the information in there, it's not going to give you the right answer on one of those scientific calculators. You have to
Yep.
really know how to use those. I know that we're getting kind of close to getting to our time, so I was just going to ask you one final question of when does all this state testing begin?
So our state testing window opens April 1st, and that will start off with our 11th graders doing the ACT and the history and science tests. The way they have it set up, and this is through ACT, this is not the State Department, this is not EPIC, but it is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is when we're allowed to give the ACT, and then normally whenever we're trying to schedule, we'll schedule Mondays and Fridays for the science and the history at that time. Then once we get to mid-April, I don't know the exact date, that's when 3rd through 8th grade will start in, and they will start there, and they are it'll be scheduled out through May 15th, and that's the last day of state testing.
Okay, so we start with those high schoolers first, then get into those younger grades and whatnot. So that's great information. Carla, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Okay, I do. I have one other question, or maybe a couple for Kim. I think we've done such a great job of covering us some great information today. Don't you all agree?
Yeah.
And I thank you all so much. The only other thing I could think of, Kim, I was going to ask you. I know testing sites right now. If you walk in the door of a church, a local church, right now, if you look on a list, you see, I don't know, a Goodrich United Methodist in Norman, for example. One day it's going to be transformed into a test site. How does that happen? What do we do? And I'd love to get your feedback on that.
All hands on deck. We have EPIC staff from everywhere, from principals. They come to the locations, and our technology friends, they deliver all of our stuff that we need for our site. We have everything from Kleenexes to MiFis to laptops and everything that we need to state test. And then we have a work day where we have EPIC staff members come in and set up the testing location, the test rooms, if you will. And so we will outfit the entire room with making sure their tables are set up, their chairs are comfortable, and that they have all of their laptops, because our students are all using technology, just like their Chromebook, to take their state test. And so they all will have enough laptops for that testing session, along with their papers and pencils, and there's nothing that the student will need, not even their own laptop. If they'll just come with a happy attitude and ready to accomplish everything, then we've got it all planned out for you. Everything is ready to go.
Very good. Outstanding. And if you're new to EPIC, Kim, give us a day in the life of a maybe a 4th grader. So I'm a parent. Am I going in? Am I staying with my student? How does that work? Give me a flow of my day. I'm a new to EPIC parent. I'm a 4th grade mom. What do I do?
Right. During that mid-April point, your teacher will get a hold of you and let you know in advance what time and what day you are to be at a certain location. So that information will not be new. It'll be something that you already know where you're going to be, what time you're going to be there, and what day. So in a day in the life, you arrive, you have, we typically allow you to have a snack. Some sites actually have crackers and different things and juice for the kiddos, water bottles. So those are there. And then you will take a section at a time, and those sections are typically 30 questions, and you'll have a break time, no pressure. It just depends on what your test day looks like, but be aware and have that cell phone ready to answer a question from your teacher. They're going to text you. They're going to, did you make it to the test site? Is everything going great? How can I help you the next day? Was everything successful? So be in constant communication, and please have those phones charged, ready to go on to hear from your teacher, because they need to be able to know if you made it or not.
Yes, we definitely the
Yeah.
teacher definitely likes to hear from those parents. Did your child make it to the test site on time? Are they in there? Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. Thank you for that. And just to kind of add to that, when your student is dropped off, if they have a phone on, they have wonderful little baggies that they will have to be drop their phone off in. If they have anything that they've brought in there with them, they'll leave it in a baggie, and it is safe and sound. They will be assigned a number, typically in their name, and they will be escorted back in the back, safe and sound. And again, as Kim so wonderfully spoke and said, when they're finished and ready, they will be contacted and have that phone ready. I love that, Kim. That's great. So, anyway, okay. Well, I think we have covered, and we've done a really good job of covering a lot of great information today to get our students ready, prepared, and just encouraged for testing. Does anyone else have anything they like to add that would make our families even more equipped for their time in April and May? Anybody? Okay. All right. Great. Well, Shawnee, do you want to go ahead and give us our conclusion? Oh, I
Sure.
know what we talked about tutoring. I apologize. That was the last thing. Kim, I forgot to mention tutoring because we did want to mention tutoring. We have something. I'll let you talk about tutoring. That was the last
Absolutely.
question. Go
Hey, we
ahead.
have a wonderful program at Epic called ETI. They take the state standards and they will tutor your child on those state test questions. So, if you are not aware of ETI, please ask your teacher about ETI, because that is a resource from Epic that your student has available for that test prep session. It's located in their Clever. They can log on with their ETI icon, and they can schedule a time for a tutor on ETI. And again, when your teacher offers those teacher test prep sessions on a Zoom, please be available for those, because they are so important. I guarantee you're going to see some test questions. So it's very beneficial.
Outstanding. That's true. Very good. Okay. All right. That's
It
it. Thank
is.
you.
Okay. Well, as we can tell, testing is very crucial for our students. Provides a reliable method to gauge their grasp of the information, kind of like what Robert was saying earlier about their understanding. So, although that state testing may be a source of anxiety, parents and teachers can empower their students through knowledge, tools, and resources. And we try to ensure that they are well prepared and not just left to achieve these things on their own. So we want to make sure that we meet all those expectations. Through patience and intentional support, families can guide students to excel and reach new heights in their academic journey.
All right. So I just want to take the time to tell Robert and Kimberly, you all made a very difficult subject a lot of fun today. I just want to say that. And Shawnee, you were amazing. I just want to say that too.
Oh,
I
well,
feel
thanks. You
that
too, Carla.
we have so much fun today. Testing can be, let's just say not the most fun topic to talk about. Let's just say that. But you guys, y'all brought it today. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Kim, so much. Anyway, but anyway, if anybody still has any questions about our programs or anything discussed today, or maybe you are considering enrolling, but need more information, please reach out to our team at 405-749-4550. Our extension is 489, or you can email us at edt@epiccharterschools.org. We're happy to answer questions and give you the information you need to make the best choice for your students. And I'm going to tell you all, we are still enrolling. This is great. We love it. Bring them on. Bring the students on. We are enjoying every bit of it. Our team is just still enrolling students every day. So we love it. Anyway, thank you again for joining us today, and come back next week for Ask Epic. Bye, everybody. Have a good day. See you.